Thanks, Howie. Great to have the V8 Supercars back on track. It's the Coates Hire V8 Supercar Challenge here at Albert Park. The 20th year the V8s have been here, and we saw an unbelievable race earlier on today. Jack Perkins, man, there were some movers and shakers in this top 10.
Yeah, there was. It was a great race. Shane van Gisbergen ended up winning from 5th on the grid and put a good move on Jamie Whincup. He actually pressured him into a mistake, locking a tyre, and he got momentum, did a switchback as it's known in the industry, and got him done. So that's a nice little one on the board there for the two new teammates. And we saw Chaz Mostert get up to 3rd. He put a late race move on Fabian Coulthard.
And Scott Pye from 10th, Garth Tander from 15th into the top 10. They finished 5th and 6th respectively. Stories at the opposite end of the grid. One of them, Jason Bright, a great qualifying performance for the Team BOC driver. Started the race 6th, unravelled about 400 metres into the race when he was carted off the road down at turn 1 in that turn 1-2 crush and ended up stranded out at turn 3. So Jason Bright will do this one from the back of the field, as will Todd Kelly. Had a mechanical failure on the car sales Nissan and stopped to drivers left on the exit pit lane. So some dramas for some. A great race at the front of the field though, but the stewards had a look at some of the incidents in that race and there was an outcome from that.
Yeah, there was. So Mark Winterbottom was turned around right on this part of the circuit here, the high-speed turn. Fabian Coulthard was up the inside and fortunately they made contact. Mark spinning around, lucky not to get cleaned up by some other cars. He ended up finishing 21st where he started this race, but the stewards looked into it, into 2 incidents, including the Jason Bright Scott Pye one at turn 1, and found that no breaches of the rules were discovered. So no penalties for this race, and no doubt there will be happy drivers and upset drivers out of all of that, as is the way. But most of the time, there's only ever one winner in motor racing, isn't there? What
did you make of the Van Gisbergen Whincup stoush for the lead?
Look, I think Shane's really asserted his authority there. It's very hard to pass your teammate in this industry because, you know, you don't want to rub doors and swap panel, because the #1 rule from Roland Dane is you can race as hard as you want, but the minute your paint from your car touches your teammate's car, it's not going to end well in his office. So, great move. Like I said, he did pressure Jamie into a mistake. He had a left front tyre locked in the back straight there, into the right-hand turn. It enabled Shane to get some momentum and got the switchback done and got the passing move into the penultimate corner. So, double file restarts. We saw this at the start of the last race and also the safety car restart. So 2x2 down the front straight. They go when the red light drops out, and Shane van Gisbergen's your pole man.
There was plenty of chatter on social media about that side-by-side restart mid-race as well. So race 2, the V8 Supercars at Albert Park. The Red Bulls on the front row. Lights out, and away we go. Good start from Garth Tander and the Holden Racing Team Commodore. Immediately draws alongside and passes Fabian Coulthard. But he's on the outside of the road, and Fabian on a little wet patch there. And down the inside goes Mostert, and cops a hit in the rear bar. And in a replay of what happened at the start of race 1, the Lucas Dumbrell Motorsport Commodore stranded in the grass, but it's 97 in front of double 8 with Mostert and everybody else behind. Lowndes looking up the inside of the Holden Racing Team Commodores and works his way through the Caltex Vortex entry.
Tricky conditions here. You see a lot of the racetrack still got some surface moisture, generating no grip. Tyres are basically cold. We also saw James Courtney into the back of Garth Tander, which is potentially against the team conduct, but I think someone might have been in the back of James Courtney there. Chaz got a good jump initially off the start, but wasn't able to move forward. He's still in 3rd. We see here Timmy Slade in the Freightliner Commodore just behind Cam Willis. Those rolling starts are really difficult. You heard the wheel spin. As soon as the light goes out, if you jam 650 horsepower through that right foot, it spins the tyres. So Tander got a good start. I suggest he had good drive off the line.
And a greasy racetrack too. Contact. Lee Holdsworth, the Preston Hire, Charlie Schwerkolt Racing Commodore down the inside. It's on for the lead with Whincup right up behind Van Gisbergen. SVG said took a bit of a gamble with some tyre pressures which worked for him in that first race. They would have taken some knowledge out of that, transferred that to his teammate's car. So there should, in theory, be nothing between them. The two Fords hunting them down. Craig Lowndes, meanwhile, looking for a move on Scott Pye and gets it done. CL had a heck of a race early on today. He was passed a lot of cars as Tander does the same on Scotty Pye, but he ended up in the same position where he started. He was the only driver in the top 10 to maintain his starting position. It's a weird old race for the most experienced driver on the grid.
And look at this, it's on for young and old here. See, Garth Tander will not give an inch in motor racing. He saw that Lowndes got past Scott Pye. He knew Pye was didn't have the momentum and got the job done. And now look at them all pouncing on Scotty Pye down the front straight.
Cam Waters drives around in the Monster Falcon. Pro Drive Racing Australia. Scott McLaughlin in the game here as well.
Oh, Scott Pye.
And off and
had
into the gravel and got to keep the momentum up.
He was on the inside of the racetrack. There was a little bit of moisture there, and he locked a left front as soon as he touched the brake pedal. And basically, you're a passenger from there when you can't pull up the car.
It's the same moisture that Fabian Coulthard got. He was in the middle of the road as they went down to turn 1 on the race start.
Here's the battle for the lead now. Shane Van Gisbergen under a bit of pressure. Both the Fords of Chaz Mostert and Fabian Coulthard have caught right up to the back of the Red Bull Commodores. And Chaz with the lights on, he means business.
Gee, it's been feisty today, hasn't it? Great racing across the board. Porsche Carrera Cup, V8 Supercar. Bring you all the races over the course of the weekend on 10 and 10 HD. In the meantime, it's Van Gisbergen who, with his 5th victory, equalled Craig Lowndes and Jason Bright on the all-time winners list here at Albert Park. 6th win would time with one of the all-time greats in Mark Scaife, but he's got 12 laps to hold out. Very, very competitive pack, including Chaz Mostert, who's had great form at this venue. Quartet of second places behind his teammate here last year, Pro Drive Racing Australia.
This is where it's going to happen, Krause. Down here, this is where Shane was able to put a bit of pressure on Jamie. They come out of the high-speed turns, and then if you have one little slide where the wet AstroTurf is, you can lose position down here, and it's a great finish to what is an awesome racetrack.
Lowndes, meanwhile, hunting these 4 down in P5. So he's catching them quite quickly as they squabble over the race lead.
A lot of the confidence from the drivers comes from the soft tyres. It really gives you a much better feel inside the car, a lot more forgiveness when you want to throw it down the inside. I think that's why we saw and are seeing such good races here.
Yeah, it's a good point, Jacko. Really obvious to me in that last race, drivers racing to the end of it, and I think it's a good message to the administrators of V8 Supercars. Soft tyres are a good option. One of the critical things going on here is tyre pressure management, because they got to run 12 laps earlier in the day. We've had varying temperature over the course of the weekend. Very, very difficult to get the tyre pressures right. And remember, a pound or two either way could put you out of the picture.
Lowndes, thanks, Lyco. That time round, Craig Lowndes more than half a second quicker than the leaders. Now, this is Scott Pye down the inside of the Monster Falcon.
It came off the white line. It wasn't wet there, but the white line would have had a little bit of moisture there, and as soon as he chucked the brakes on, it was a left front lock. Replay at the start. Look at Tan, a great jump there right of screen on the left-hand side of the track. Like I said, as soon as the light goes out, you'd have your left foot on the brake pedal and you jump down on the throttle pedal, but they still spin the wheels. They've got so much horsepower, these cars, and not a lot of traction.
What happened to that Lucas Dumbrell car? That was Andre Heimgartner, the young Kiwi.
That was a case of 4 into 1, doesn't work.
David Reynolds?
Yeah, David Reynolds into the side of Blanchard, Blanchard into the side of Heimgartner, and one of them couldn't make it through, and that was Andre, so he's at the rear of the field.
He's had a really solid weekend. Andre Heimgartner actually out-qualified Clipsal 500 winner Nick Percat by a half a hundredth of a second. The 2 LDM cars beat Percat in race 1. Nick we saw off the road, of course, earlier in that motor race. This time the roles reversed for the 2 competitors from LDM, smallest team in pit lane, but big achievers in the opening round of the championship.
It's a good point you touch on, Krause, and it's something we've familiarised with Formula One quite a lot, where we compare teammates, and it's becoming more and more apparent in V8 Supercars that the first comparison is against the teammate. And we see now, speaking of teammates, Red Bull Racing have bolted on a 3rd car as part of the Triple Eight stable, and Lowndes, who's running fastest on the track in 5th, but a spirited battle up ahead with Chaz really working over the back of Jamie Winker.
He got a great run through turn 14 and almost rattled the rear bar of car 88. So he's in this on the run down to turn 1. And you mentioned Craig Lowndes. Last 2 laps in a row, he's been the fastest driver on the racetrack. He's catching this battle. Meanwhile, it's allowed Shane Van Gisbergen to pull away. 1.2 seconds now, the leader's margin, and that's happened in half a lap. Yeah. They were locked together around the back of the circuit. To watch Mostert as they run up the braking zone at turn 3. But Whincup too good, too controlled. Mostert's just going to have to bide his time and wait. And meanwhile, Craig Lowndes looms in the background. And yeah, speak of that teammate battle, that was always going to be one of the tales, was how would Craig Lowndes in that new 3rd entry from Triple Eight go against Shane Van Gisbergen and Jamie Whincup? Well, the answer so far is pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, we've got 3 A-grade top-class drivers there, and we've seen some teams expand. Triple Eight have gone to 3 cars. HRT, on the other hand, have downsized. They've got rid of their customer operation this season, and they're focusing on the 2 red cars, the 2 Holden Racing Team Commodores of James Courtney and Garth Tander. But we see there Lowndes on screen, definitely the fastest car on track. He's ranged right up to the back here. I'm not sure whether Jamie Whincup's potentially just not happy with the rear of his car. He doesn't have the pace of Shane Van Gisbergen, who's set in purple sectors here. He's the fastest car on track through the first section of the racetrack, and Jamie's falling back into the clutches of Chaz and Fabian behind.
Larko?
So I was just going to say, for me, this is a really key moment in the championship, because this is the first time we've seen guys in battle where Shane Van Gisbergen is pulling away from Jamie Whincup. Jamie will not like that. If you rewind to previous years, Jamie's worst days have typically been when Craig Lowndes was having his best days. And this is, to me, there's so much of a mind game going on this year between these 2 guys. You're going to hear me talk about it a lot. I already have, and I'm going to continue to do so. This will be the battle of the year.
I'm keen for your input, Larko, on Chaz Mostert. You do a lot of work with young, talented racing car drivers, and you know as well as anyone that the mental game is so important. It must be a big tick for him with how he's got back into the game and right at the front of the field.
Yeah, Trayley, look, a whole lot of cars going past. I didn't quite hear, but I think I got the gist of it. I actually think Chaz has done a ripping job getting back and getting up to speed, because you've got to think, over the last couple of years now, you know, big crash at Bathurst, what was it, 213 I think it was, another big crash at Bathurst, big crash at Winton, 2 crashes in 2 Clipsal 500s, and he's had to bounce back from all of those. This guy's raw, he's talented, but with that often goes the need to be able to temper that, manage that, and turn that into race results. And that's why you see guys like Jamie are so hard to beat, because they've got both sides of that. And what we often forget, whether it's Scotty McLaughlin or Chaz Mostert, Scotty Pye, a lot of these guys are young. They're under 25 years old. And as you know, as a young bloke, you don't mature till you're 24.
Thanks, Larko. Rain at the back of Albert Park. It is not raining outside our commentary box, but rain at the back of Albert Park. Shane Van Gisbergen leads the way by 2 seconds. We're halfway through race 2 in the V8 Supercars. Jump away for a quick break. Come back with a conclusion after this. One of the more dramatic days of weather we've ever seen at Albert Park, and just to cap it off, the sun is out and it's raining as we work our way through race 2 of the Coates Hire V8 Supercar Challenge, a battle between the Holden Racing Team teammates, Garth Tander leading James Courtney. While you're away, that rain shower caught Chaz Mostert out down at turn 1. Jack Perkins, he ran off the road, shortcutted, he dropped from 3rd place down to 5th. He's elevated Craig Lowndes onto the podium.
And how's that? 888, 1, 2 and 3. And I'm telling you now, Lowndes is one of the fastest cars on the track. We look at the replay here, see Chaz right front locked, and he's just speared off the road there, while Craig Lowndes managed to get the job done on Fabian Coulthard. And I tell you what, Chaz's re-entry here, we nearly saw a repeat of a crash we saw some 13 years ago between Paul Morris and Paul Dunbar. Look at this, so close not to tag the back of Craig Lowndes, and that would have ended in tears.
This a little bit further down the field. LDM cars, Andre Heimgartner in the wars today. Grabs a break, funnels down the escape road. Not the only one to do that today. A couple of Formula 1 guys in the wet conditions early on did the same thing. It's a good link there, actually, while we're talking history. We've got to send a bit of a birthday message to one of the greats of our sport. In fact, Cars He Prepared have been hugely successful here, but it's your old man's birthday.
Yeah, it is, yeah. 66 years ago today he was born, so happy birthday, Dad. And yep, their car's had a few successes over the years here, so hope you're enjoying a beer somewhere, Dad. But it's all about the race here. We see Craig Lowndes right on the back of Jamie Whincup. And this is interesting now. Different paint schemes on the cars, but still teammates. And I think Craig has the pace here over Jamie. I think he's got Shane's pace out in front.
Russell Ingall in what was then a Castrol Perkins Commodore, the only driver to clean sweep 2 rounds here at Albert Park in the V8 Supercars 20-year history at this venue. So a lot of success. 97, early days of the sport here. The early days of the Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne. There's Van Gisbergen. That's the margin, but Lowndes hunting Whincup down and sets his personal best fastest lap of the race, 57.7 to Whincup's 58.4. Van Gisbergen just punched out the fastest lap of the motor race as well. So he's got good pace out in front, SVG, and watch Lowndes. He's on. He got a very good run out of turn 2. He'll be looking racy up to 3.
I tell you what, you've got good car speed around here. If you're setting your fastest lap on softs towards the end of the race, it means you've got good speed. So Lowndes has got excellent speed, and he's right on the back of Jamie Whincup here. He's looking to make a move as soon as he can.
Jamie seems to have struggled a little bit today, Jack. It's been an obscure day for the multiple champ. And Lowndes hauling him in, and that inter-battle we've been talking about within Triple Eight. The other thing we should notice is that Roland Dane's cars are 1, 2 and 3 at the moment. So that will be a very, very big milestone for that team, having expanded in the off-season.
Yeah, and the other attribute they got there, Richard, is that that one of the really smart guys in our pit lane, we're talking about him a lot, little Frenchman called Ludo Lacroix, who we can't understand on the radio when he talks, but I can tell you he's a very, very bright voice. So as a result of Craig Lowndes moving to the garage next door, which I thought that's going to be good, he'll get away from the intensity of the Red Bull battle, which he likes, and that'll kind of work for him. But he's dragged Ludo along with his race engineer. So whilst Craig may not understand what he's saying on the radio all the time, he will have an impact over the influence of the performance of all 3 cars. So that's going to be an asset for him this year.
Teammates making a move here. James Courtney up the inside of Garth Tander, and right at the last stage had a bit of rear brake lock, and Garth's just let him know he wasn't too happy about it, and now they are racing incredibly hard. I'm sure if you had a shot of Adrian Burgess right now, the heart rate would be right up. Spirited racing, giving each other a bit of racing room there. And now the big benefactor could be Scotty McLaughlin. He's right on the back of JC.
Don't let anyone tell you that this no points malarkey doesn't mean anything, because they are racing very, very hard. Teammates rubbing door mirrors. The final complex turns 15 and 16. Scott McLaughlin fancies himself there. That's Adrian Burgess watching on the Holden Racing Team garage. Big year for that outfit. Bit of success last season, including fantastic win on the streets of the Gold Coast by my co-commentator, sharing with James Courtney. This is a good scrap, 6th and 7th. You get the feeling McLaughlin might pop out in front of both of these by the end of the race if they continue on the way they are. Van Gisbergen continues to lead Jamie Whincup. The leading margin, 2.8 seconds now. Lowndes just a fraction slower than Whincup last time by. So that margin's just normalised while they scrap over the final spot on the podium.
Yeah, the Holden Racing team have done a lot of work in the off-season to try and improve the consistency and the performance of the cars, and started the year incredibly well. I mean, double podium for James on Saturday and a podium for Garth on Sunday, which is encouraging signs. One of the most successful teams in V8 Supercar history, and good to see them making some progress. You see here, Lowndes still pressure in the back of his teammate, Jamie Whincup, and Chaz Mostert looking very racy behind Fabian Coulthard here. It's so hard to pass your own brand of car because you've got the same engine, same bodywork, so your aerodynamic performance and your engine ability is exactly the same, so your weaknesses generally come from driver error, and that's where you need to pounce.
We spoke in race 1 about the impressive performance from DJR Team Penske here, and the fact they translated their speed from the Clipsal 500 to a completely different style of racetrack, and it's got pit lane and the media corps talking that they could be a contender perhaps a little bit sooner than everyone expected. Very canny signing of Fabian Coulthard alongside Scott Pye, 2-car expanded program.
They're another team that's done a lot of work, you know, in the garage sense. I mean, Phil Keed, who's a well-renowned engineer, he came with Fabian Coulthard from Brad Jones Racing. He's very well respected up and down pit lane. And Scott Pye's engineer is actually Adam DeBore, who was Chaz Mostert's engineer for the last 2 years. We look now, Craig Lowndes looking up the inside, thought wiser off it because I think A, they're teammates, and B, there was a little bit of moisture down there on the inside, so he didn't want to have that one end up with 2 cars in the gravel trap.
It's so good to see the best drivers in the category going at it like this. Craig Lowndes, one of the greats of all time, on Jamie Whincup. Looks again at turn 3, and Jamie, as good as he is, just covering off.
This is the hardest position to be in as a race car driver in Craig Lowndes' shoes. You've got, you know, massive amount of car speed over the car in front, but to get the job done when you've got 2 world-class drivers on the limit, it means you need to leave the limit to get the job done, and especially when your teammate don't want to put a mark on that other car.
We'll echo a thought that Larko made early on, that the move to the soft tyre for this year, 4 sets of the Dunlop soft compound tyre compared to the hards we ran last year. It's really invigorated the racing here at the Grand Prix. It's been spectacular, both races. The weather has probably assisted a little bit, but it has been fantastic, and the fight continues between the teammates at Triple Eight Racing Australia. The fight for best forward in 4th and 5th continues between Coulthard and Mostert. Tander and Courtney still squabbling over 6th and 7th. Behind them is Scott McLaughlin, first of the Volvos. Then Tim Slade up to 9th place, which is a very impressive performance by Tim Slade, given where he qualified in 18th place, worked his way up to 12th in race 1. So that mirrors the pace that we saw from Brad Jones, Commodore of Jason Bright in quali. Tander's still holding on here, by the way. And Michael Caruso just inside the top 10. We should also mention Mark Winterbottom has worked his way to 12th from nearly the back of the field in the Pro Drive Racing Australia FGX Falcon. So he's carved his way through and try and get himself in a position to contend in tomorrow's race.
Hey, boys, just look at Craig Lowndes lurking around in the back here. I wish we had an in-car camera there. He'd have a great big smile on his face. This is the stuff that Craig Lowndes loves doing, driver stuff. And when he's on your back bumper like that, I can tell you, he's a pest. He's an absolute pest. And Jamie is the last bloke that you want behind you at this point of time. And to go to the point about your soft tyre, Richard, you're dead right. The frequency in which Craig is pulling out and having a little look, he just wouldn't be doing that on a hard tyre. He'd be trying to manage it. I love the fact that these guys are having a crack, and this will go down to the wire.
Yeah, it's right. It's the forgiveness factor, and it's hard when you haven't driven on the two tyres, but effectively you've got more grip and you've got more opportunity to leap off the limit of the tyre grip, sneak up the inside. With a hard tyre, as soon as you leave the limit and you take it beyond its sort of comfort zone, it locks a tyre and you're in the door of the next car. So just gives you a lot better grip and a lot better feel when you're driving.
And yes, Craig Lowndes would be smiling, but when is he not?
Exactly.
He's always got a grin on his face. I think this will just make it even broader. Of course, in that off-season motocross or trail bike crash, he broke his collarbone, ruled him out of racing in the Bathurst 12-hour earlier this year, but was back and fit and healthy for the Clipsal 500, and a solid performance there. Had a share of the lead, I think, in that wet race on Sunday. It was in the game at least, and it didn't quite work out for them in the end, but it was a solid performance, and this has just backed up. All three of those Triple Eight cars are going to be very, very strong, as expected this season. And there's the fight for 4th and 5th. With Fabian Coulthard and Chaz Mostert, and Lowndes has another look. It's got that early turn in. It's often a bit of a false indicator as to whether he's going to make a move. However, that was more than just Craig getting into the apex earlier than any other driver. He is having a real look. There'll be a lap to go next time by.
Jamie's ran a little bit wide. He's boulder wide, as they say. Just missed the apex there at the second to last corner. And to further Larko's comment, I mean, when Lowndes is behind you in the rear vision mirror, because he turns in a little bit earlier, you see the whole front of his car, and you think he's going to have a move. And this has been his strong suit this race. He's been able to get the job done into turn 1 a couple of times, but it is very difficult to get past there because the approach speed and the actual corner speed through there is still quite high. You're in third gear, and it's quite a fast corner.
But Clipsal proved this is the kind of scrap that Jamie Whincup loves the most. He won't like that it's for second place as Lowndes sends it round the outside. Now, if you can stay there, you can often position yourself well for turn 4. He won't. He'll try the switchback. Jamie's good, but he loves the fight. And even though he finished second to James Courtney in that amazing race at the Clipsal 500, you saw here on 10, he got out of that grinning and say, mate, that's why we go car racing. We love driving these things as hard as we can and scrapping for a race victory. This is for P2, but I don't think he'll be enjoying it any less. It's why Whincup gets out of bed in the morning. Van Gisbergen out in front to make it 2 from 2 at Albert Park. The fight's still on for the Miners. Whincup backs it in to the chicane, the right hand around the back of Albert Park. Doesn't open the door for Lowndes at turn 11.
I tell you, Jamie Whincup's right on the ragged edge here. I think his rear tyre life's not to the same quality as Craig Lowndes. Just locked the rears as he's put it back into that last gear there, and just lost the rear on the way in, and it's enabled Craig to bounce. But I tell you what, a 888-123 should be very ominous for the rest of the field.
Down at Pro Drive Racing Australia, the defending champions might be a little worried. Lowndes on the final lap for second place, wrestles it away from Jamie Whincup. There's a huge cheer from the crowd here at Albert Park today. The folk hero of V8 Supercars wrestles P2 away. It's been a great drive for Lowndesy, but what about the drift king of the Supercars? Shane Van Gisbergen started race 1 5th. Worked his way to the lead. He goes 2 from 2 on Fantastic Friday at Albert Park, and it's a 1-2-3 for 888 Race Engineering Australia. What a performance, and another really good motor race.
That was a great race. Lowndes came from 7th on the grid there, so his car speed was absolutely awesome. And we see Garth Tander, James Courtney finishing 6th and 7th. Bit of a battle back in the pack here between David Reynolds, Scotty Pye, Todd Kelly in the Nissan. And must point out, Michael Caruso, first in Nissan's home in 10th place.
That was great. What a good scrap. And these two guys driving as hard as they possibly can. Confirm the results. You know, the top 3. A good drive for Fabian Coulthard backing up his P4 from the race earlier today. Mostert had that error that cost him potentially a podium, though might not have been able to stop Craig Lowndes for P2 in that one. Tander beat out his teammate James Courtney. Those two scrapped all day. McLaughlin to P8. Slade in the 10. And Michael Caruso, the first of the Nissans. Rick Kelly to 11th. The champ, Mark Winterbottom, from the back of the field to 12th. Will give them some hope to work their way into the top half of the top 10 in race 3 tomorrow. Then Cam Waters and Will Davison. Chris Pither, Super Black Racing, rounding out the 15. Holdsworth had dramas early on, was caught up in that turn 1 issue. Preston Hire Racing Commodore and ultimately finished that one in 20th place. Great V8 supercar racing here at Albert Park. There's more racing to come this weekend. Both races 3 and 4 coming your way live on 10 and 10 HD. As we go to a break, let's go and catch up with Nat Hunter. She's been catching up with the team at the Shannon Super Rig.